Welcome, dear listeners, to another great episode of the English Globe, your favorite place to learn real English through world topics. We are so happy that you're here with us today, and we hope you're ready for a very interesting and important discussion. This episode is going to be about a global topic that everyone is talking about. Whether you're a student, a traveler, a business person, or just someone curious about the world, this topic affects you.
That's right, Adam. Today we are going to talk about something that's connected to every country in the world. Whether you are using your local money to buy something online or you're planning to travel abroad, global trade and currency decisions can change your life. Our topic today is BRICS versus the dollar, who will control global trade? And we promise to make it easy and interesting for you to understand.
Yes, Julia. This is not just a topic for economists or politicians. This is something that affects everyday people, like you and me. Because when we talk about BRICS and the US dollar, we are actually talking about who controls the flow of money in the world, who decides how trade works, and who has the power to change the future of countries and people.
Dear listeners, before we go deeper into this topic, we would love to ask you for a small favor. If you are enjoying learning English through our podcasts, please give this video a like and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The English Globe. We post weekly podcasts that help you improve your English and understand the world around you.
Also, we really want to hear from you. Please go to the comments section and write where you are listening from. Are you in India, Brazil, Egypt, South Africa, or maybe Europe or the United States? We would love to know what people from different countries think about this global topic.
Yes. And after listening to the episode, please also share your opinion. Do you think BRICS will replace the US dollar in global trade? Or do you think the dollar will stay strong for many more years? Your opinion matters, and we always enjoy reading your thoughtful comments.
So now, let's get started with this amazing journey into the world of economics, power, money, and international relations. But don't worry. We will explain everything in simple English so that all of you can understand it clearly and practice your listening skills at the same time.
To begin, we need to understand what this conflict or competition is really about. When we say BRICS versus the dollar, we are not talking about a war with weapons. Instead, we are talking about a competition of currencies, trade systems, and influence. One side is a group of countries called BRICS. The other side is the United States and its powerful currency, the US dollar.
The US dollar has been the most powerful and most used currency in the world for a long time. Most international trade, including buying oil, gas, technology, and food, is done using US dollars. But now, some countries are trying to change that system. They believe that too much power is in the hands of the United States, and they want a new system that is more fair and balanced.
And that's where BRICS comes in. The BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have joined together to create a group that works together for economic cooperation. They have different cultures and political systems, but one thing they all agree on is that the world should not depend on just one country's currency.
Exactly. In recent years, BRICS has been talking more and more about reducing their use of the US dollar. They want to trade with each other using their own currencies, or maybe even create a new shared currency. This idea has become more popular, especially after global events like sanctions, inflation, and banking crises that made many countries feel unsafe with the dollar.
Now, this is not an easy thing to do. The dollar is strong and trusted because of America's powerful economy, banking system, and military influence. But if more countries start to join BRICS and support this idea, the global trade system could slowly begin to shift. That's why this question is so important today. Who will control global trade in the future?
As we move forward in today's podcast, we will break down each part of this complex situation. We will explain what BRICS is, how it works, and why it wants to challenge the US dollar. We will also look at what this means for global power and how it could change the way countries do business with each other.
We will use examples, comparisons, and simple English to help you understand this topic deeply. And by the end of this podcast, you'll be able to speak about BRICS, the dollar, and global trade with confidence. So stay with us and remember to listen carefully. This is a great way to learn new words, phrases, and ideas.
We hope you're excited, just like we are. It's always amazing to learn something new and practice English at the same time. So let's begin our journey by understanding BRICS, who they are, why they were formed, and what their goals are. That's coming up next in Section 2.
And once again, don't forget to subscribe to the English Globe like this episode and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. We love reading your messages, and we want to build a big community of English learners from every part of the world.
Let's begin this part of our journey by answering a simple but very important question. What exactly is BRICS? Many people have heard the name, but not everyone understands what it means or why it matters. BRICS is an acronym. That means each letter stands for a country. These countries are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, they form a group that is working to change the way global trade and finance works.
That's right, Adam. The idea of BRICS started in the early 2000s, when economists noticed that some countries outside of Europe and North America were growing very fast. These countries had large populations, strong industries, and fast-growing economies. People believed that these countries could play a much bigger role in the global economy if they worked together as a group instead of staying separate.
The first group was actually just BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They began talking about their shared goals and challenges in the global economy. Later, in 2010, South Africa joined the group, and the name became BRICS with an S at the end. Since then, BRICS has become a regular part of world meetings. They hold annual summits where leaders come together to discuss economy, politics, development, and global power.
Each country in BRICS is different, and that's what makes this group interesting. Brazil is known for its agriculture, energy, and natural resources. Russia is rich in oil and gas and has a strong military. India has a massive population and a growing technology sector. China is the world's second largest economy with powerful factories and exports. And South Africa is a key country in Africa with mining, trade, and strategic importance.
Even though these countries are far from each other and have different languages, cultures, and political systems, they share a few common goals. First, they all want to have a stronger voice in international organizations like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. They feel that Western countries, especially the United States, have too much control in these places.
Second, they want to make trade and finance more fair for developing countries. For many years, global financial systems were designed by Western powers, and BRICS countries believe that those systems often help rich nations more than poor ones. By working together, BRICS wants to create new systems that include different voices, offer more choices, and allow countries to work with partners outside of Western influence.
Another important goal of BRICS is to reduce their dependency on the US dollar. Right now, most countries in the world use the dollar to pay for goods like oil, food, and technology. Even if two countries are not trading with America, they often use the dollar in the deal. This gives the United States a lot of power over the world economy. If the dollar becomes weak, or if the US uses economic sanctions, many countries feel the impact.
That's why BRICS members have started talking about using their own local currencies when they trade with each other. For example, India and Russia have made agreements to use Indian rupees and Russian rubles in their business deals. China also wants to increase the use of its currency, the yuan, in international trade. These changes could help BRICS countries protect their economies from dollar-related problems.
BRICS is not just about ideas. they've also started real projects. One of the biggest is the New Development Bank, which is like an alternative to the World Bank. This bank gives loans to BRICS countries and other developing nations so they can build roads, schools, hospitals, and technology without always going to Western banks. It's a way for BRICS to show they are serious about helping each other and other parts of the world.
Many countries are watching BRICS very closely. Some people believe this group could become a big competitor to the G7, which is a group of the world's richest Western nations. Others think BRICS is just a loose group with big dreams, but too many differences to really change the system. But one thing is clear: BRICS is growing in power, and more countries are showing interest in joining their mission.
So, to summarize, BRICS is a group of 5 powerful countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that are working together to create a new way of doing global business. They want to trade more with each other, support development, reduce their use of the US dollar, and increase their voice in the world economy. It's a bold idea, and it's already starting to make waves.
And this brings us to our next big question. Why exactly does BRICS want to challenge the US dollar? What are the reasons behind this bold decision, and what could it mean for the rest of the world? In the next section, we'll talk about the reasons behind this move and why so many countries are starting to support it.
We'll also explain how trade, sanctions, and inflation play a role in this story, and how all of it connects to your everyday life. So make sure you keep listening. This is not just about countries and money, it's about power, fairness, and the future of our world.
And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us what you think about BRICS. Have you heard of it before? Do you think it's a good idea for countries to work together to reduce their use of the dollar? We're excited to hear your thoughts and share your opinions in future episodes.
And please remember to subscribe to the English Globe and like this video if you're enjoying it. It really helps us grow and keep making useful English podcasts for all of you. Stay tuned for Section 3, where we'll talk about the powerful history of the US dollar in global trade. To understand why BRICS wants to challenge the US dollar, we must go back in time and understand how the dollar became so powerful in the first place. It didn't happen by accident. It happened through war, agreements, and smart decisions. After World War II, the world was in crisis. Many countries were destroyed and needed to rebuild. During that time, the United States had the strongest economy and most gold reserves in the world.
Because of this strong position, in 1944, world leaders came together in a place called Bretton Woods in the United States. There, they made an agreement that would shape the future of global finance. They decided that world currencies would be linked to the US dollar, and the dollar would be linked to gold. That system made the dollar the center of international trade because other countries trusted it as a stable and reliable currency.
This agreement made it easier for countries to trade with one another. If a country wanted to buy something from another country, they could use dollars instead of local money. The dollar became a bridge between different economies. Over time, more and more countries started using it to do business, especially for important things like oil, natural gas, and industrial goods. This helped the US dollar become even more powerful globally.
In 1971, something big changed. The US decided to remove the dollar's connection to gold. Now, the dollar would no longer be backed by gold, but by the trust in the American economy itself. Many experts thought this might create a problem, but the opposite happened. The dollar stayed strong because people believed in the stability of the United States, its banks, its companies, and its government institutions.
By the 1980s and 1990s, the US dollar was completely dominant in global trade. When countries wanted to save money, they often kept their reserves in US dollars. When governments or businesses wanted to borrow money, they often borrowed in dollars. When nations bought oil or gold or even food, they usually paid in dollars. The dollar became the language of global trade, spoken by almost every country in the financial world.
Even today, more than 80% of international trade is done using US dollars. The dollar is also used in about 60% of global central bank reserves. That means most countries keep dollars as their backup currency in case their local money faces problems. This makes the dollar extremely important. If the value of the dollar changes, it affects prices, inflation, and interest rates all over the world, not just in the United States.
But the power of the dollar also gives the US government an unusual ability. It can control parts of the global economy using economic tools like sanctions and restrictions. For example, if a country is seen as a threat, the US can stop its access to dollars. This is called a financial sanction, and it can hurt that country's economy badly. Countries like Iran, Russia, and Venezuela have faced these kinds of actions in recent years.
Because of this, some countries feel nervous about depending too much on the US dollar. They worry that if they make a political decision the US doesn't like, they could be punished financially. This fear has grown even more in recent years, especially after the US used its control over financial systems like SWIFT, a messaging system used for international banking, to block some countries from global payments.
Another reason why countries want alternatives to the dollar is inflation and debt. When the US prints too many dollars or goes through economic crises, it can create waves around the world. For example, when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, it makes it harder for poor countries to pay back their debts. It also makes imported goods more expensive for those countries, especially if they have to pay in dollars.
This situation puts developing countries in a difficult position. They don't control the dollar, but they are affected by every change in its value. Imagine having to pay for oil, food, medicine, and technology using a currency you don't produce and can't control. That's why BRICS and many other countries are asking a big question today. Why should one nation's currency control the entire world's trade system?
At the same time, we must remember that the dollar is strong because people trust it. It is accepted almost everywhere, and the American economy is still one of the biggest and most productive. The US has large companies, advanced technologies, powerful banks, and a legal system that gives confidence to investors. That's why even countries that want to move away from the dollar still keep using it for now.
So we see both sides of the story here. On one side, the US dollar has created a stable system for world trade that most countries understand and use. On the other side, this system gives a lot of power to one country, which can create problems for others. That's why BRICS is stepping forward. They want to offer a different way of doing business, one that gives more freedom and balance in the world economy.
The story of the dollar is really the story of how money, trust, and power are connected. When people trust your economy, your currency becomes valuable. When people use your currency, you gain influence. And when you have influence, you can shape global systems. BRICS wants to change this structure, but the big question is, do they have the tools, trust, and strength to do it?
That is what we'll explore in the next section. Now that we understand how the US dollar became the king of global trade, we're going to ask, why does BRICS want to challenge it? What are the exact reasons, economic, political, and strategic, behind this bold idea? Stay with us as we go deeper into this historic shift in global finance.
Now that we have a good understanding of how the US dollar became so powerful in global trade, let's take a closer look at why the BRICS countries are working together to challenge this system. It's not just about money, it's also about power, fairness, and the future. BRICS believes that depending too much on one country's currency puts the rest of the world in a weak and risky position, especially when political disagreements turn into economic problems.
One of the main reasons BRICS wants to reduce the use of the US dollar is the issue of control. Right now, the global financial system is heavily influenced by the United States and its policies. When the US decides to raise interest rates or print more money, it doesn't just affect people in America. It affects people all over the world. Developing countries in particular often feel the pain the most, especially when they have to borrow dollars or repay international debts.
For example, imagine a small country in Africa or South America trying to import food or medicine. If the value of the dollar goes up, that country has to pay more for the same products, even though its local economy has not changed. This makes everyday life more expensive for people in those countries, and it becomes harder for governments to provide services. That's why BRICS believes the current system is not fair and needs to be improved or replaced.
Another reason is sanctions. In recent years, the United States has used its financial power to punish countries it disagrees with politically. When a country is hit with sanctions, it often loses access to dollars and international banking systems. This can destroy a country's ability to trade, invest, and grow. Countries like Russia, Iran, Venezuela, and even China have experienced this pressure, and now they are looking for ways to protect themselves from such risks.
Let's take Russia as an example. After the Ukraine conflict began, the United States and its allies placed heavy sanctions on Russia. Russian banks were removed from SWIFT, and many countries froze Russian assets held in foreign banks. This was a powerful message. It showed how the US and its partners could use the dollar system as a weapon. It also showed other countries that they could be next if they ever have a serious disagreement with the West.
That's why many BRICS countries are starting to use local currencies for trade between each other. For example, India and Russia have agreed to settle oil payments in rupees and rubles. China and Brazil have signed deals to use the yuan and riel in their trade. These small steps are helping BRICS members reduce their exposure to the dollar. Over time, they hope to build a new trade system that does not depend so heavily on American financial institutions.
It's also about having a stronger voice in global institutions. BRICS countries feel that the United States and other Western powers control organizations like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. These institutions offer loans and advice, but often with strict conditions that may not be fair or realistic for developing countries. BRICS wants to create a world where more countries, especially those in the global south, have a seat at the table.
That's why they created the new development bank. This bank is not controlled by any one country, and it offers loans to BRICS members and other developing nations with fewer conditions and more respect for national policies. It's an example of how BRICS wants to build financial tools that work better for the needs of the people, not just for the interests of wealthy nations and global corporations.
In addition to financial independence, there's also a question of political identity. Many BRICS countries want to move away from Western-style global leadership and build a more balanced world. They believe that the current system benefits a few powerful nations while keeping many others in a weaker position. BRICS members see themselves as leaders of a new era, one where developing countries can work together, grow together, and shape the future together.
We also need to remember that the BRICS countries have something very important in common. They all have fast-growing economies and large populations. Together, they represent more than 40% of the world's population. That means they have huge markets, strong labor forces, and growing industries. If these countries can unite economically and strategically, they could become a very serious competitor to the West in global trade and influence.
But challenging the dollar is not easy. The US dollar is trusted because of America's strong economy, legal system, and political institutions. Many investors feel safe keeping their money in US banks or buying American financial products. BRICS countries will have to build a similar level of trust, which means creating strong institutions, stable currencies, and transparent policies. This takes time and careful cooperation.
Still, the trend is clear. More and more countries are questioning the old system. They are looking for alternatives that give them more control over their own future. BRICS may not replace the dollar immediately, but it is slowly creating the building blocks of a new global financial order. The more countries that support this change, the faster it could become a real challenge to the dollar's dominance.
In summary, BRICS wants to challenge the US dollar because they want more fairness, more independence, and more influence in the global economy. They are tired of being controlled by a system they didn't create, and they are ready to build a new one. This is a bold and difficult path, but it's also a powerful message to the world, a message that says, we want something better.
In the next section, we'll compare the economic strength and trade power of BRICS versus the United States. We'll look at their total GDP, population, exports, and influence to find out who really holds more power in global trade today, and who might lead in the future. Stay with us for that deep and exciting comparison in Section 5.
Now that we understand why BRICS wants to challenge the US dollar, it's time to ask an important question. Does BRICS really have enough economic power to make this change happen? To answer that, we need to compare the trade strength, population size, total GDP, and global influence of BRICS as a group versus the United States as a single but highly powerful country. This comparison will help us understand whether BRICS is ready to change the game, or if they still have a long way to go before they can compete with the US on equal terms.
Let's start with the most basic but powerful number: population. The BRICS countries combined represent more than 40% of the world's population. That's over 3 billion people living in these 5 countries alone, with China and India being the most populated nations on Earth. In contrast, the United States has around 330 million people, which is less than 1/10 of the total BRICS population. This large population gives BRICS an advantage in terms of market size, labor force, and future economic growth potential.
Next, let's look at gross domestic product, or GDP. This is the total value of all goods and services produced in a country, and it's one of the most important ways to measure a country's economic power. According to recent data, the combined GDP of BRICS is slightly more than that of the United States when measured by purchasing power parity, which means how much people can actually buy with their money in each country. However, if you measure GDP in dollar terms, the US is still ahead of any single BRICS nation by a large margin.
But what makes this comparison interesting is the fact that BRICS is not just one country. It's a group of 5 powerful economies. When they work together, they form a huge economic bloc that has strong industries, natural resources, technology, and agriculture. China, for example, is the world's manufacturing leader. India is known for its booming tech and service industries. Brazil and Russia are rich in energy and minerals. And South Africa plays a major role in mining and trade in the African continent. Together, they cover almost every sector of the global economy.
Another key point in this comparison is global trade. The United States is still the largest single-country trader in the world, with massive exports and imports. But BRICS countries are quickly catching up. China alone is the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries, and it exports more goods than any other country on Earth. India's exports are growing fast, especially in services and pharmaceuticals. Russia is a key energy supplier. Brazil is a major food exporter, and South Africa plays a central role in Africa's trade network.
This growing trade power makes BRICS very influential, especially when they trade with each other. For example, China buys oil and gas from Russia, while India buys technology from China. Brazil sells food and raw materials to other BRICS nations. These internal trade relationships are becoming stronger, and they help BRICS depend less on Western markets. As more trade is done between BRICS members using local currencies, it reduces their need for dollars and increases their independence in global trade.
When it comes to foreign investments, the US is still the top destination for global investors because of its stable economy, strong legal system, and advanced infrastructure. But BRICS countries are becoming more attractive, especially to developing nations. China is investing in roads, ports, and railways across Asia, Africa, and Latin America through its Belt and Road Initiative. India is building new tech hubs and attracting foreign companies. Russia and Brazil are offering energy deals. South Africa is promoting industrial development across Africa.
Let's also consider energy and natural resources. BRICS countries control a large share of the world's natural wealth. Russia and Brazil have massive oil, gas, and mineral reserves. South Africa is rich in gold, platinum, and coal. China is the largest producer of rare earth minerals, which are critical for modern technologies like smartphones, batteries, and military equipment. These resources give BRICS a powerful advantage in shaping future trade routes and controlling the supply chains that are vital to the global economy.
Now let's talk about innovation and technology. The US is still the global leader in technology, with major companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Tesla. However, China is quickly closing the gap. Chinese companies like Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent are becoming global giants. India's tech sector is also booming, with companies providing services to clients around the world. If BRICS continues to invest in research and digital infrastructure, they could become a major force in the technology race, especially in areas like artificial intelligence and clean energy.
So, if we look at all these factors, population, trade, natural resources, technology, and regional influence, it's clear that BRICS is a powerful group with real potential to challenge Western dominance in global trade. They are not yet stronger than the US in every way, but as a united group, they are growing rapidly and becoming more confident. The more they work together, the more power they can build. And this is exactly why their plan to create a new trade system is being taken seriously by the world.
However, it's important to remember that economic strength is not the only thing that matters. Trust, stability, legal systems, and international cooperation also play a huge role. The US dollar is powerful not only because of America's economy, but also because people around the world believe it is safe, reliable, and easy to use. If BRICS wants to create a new system that replaces or competes with the dollar, they need to show the world that their system is just as trustworthy and dependable.
To sum up, BRICS has a lot of power and potential. They are not stronger than the US dollar today, but they are moving in that direction. With their combined resources, growing influence, and shared goals, they are working hard to change the rules of global trade. In the next section, we'll take this idea one step further and talk about how BRICS is planning to grow even bigger by inviting new countries to join their mission. What happens if more nations join BRICS? Could this change the entire balance of world power?
Stay with us as we explore this exciting topic in the next part of the podcast, BRICS expansion. Who wants to join? We'll look at which countries are interested in joining, why they want to become part of BRICS, and how that could affect the future of global trade and currency power.
Now that we've explored how powerful BRICS already is in terms of population, trade, and natural resources, let's take a look at something even more interesting. The group is getting bigger. Yes, BRICS is no longer just 5 countries working together. In recent years, many other countries have shown interest in joining BRICS because they believe in its mission, support its goals, and want to be part of a new global system that offers an alternative to Western-led institutions and the dominance of the US dollar.
This is called BRICS expansion, and it could be one of the most important developments in global politics and economics. Imagine if more countries from Africa, Latin America, Asia, or even the Middle East joined the group. That would increase BRICS' power, trade influence, and population dramatically. It would also make BRICS more diverse, more representative of the global South, and more capable of competing with Western groups like the G7 and the European Union in shaping the world economy and diplomacy.
Some of the countries that have publicly expressed interest in joining BRICS include Saudi Arabia, Iran, Argentina, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, and even Nigeria. Each of these countries brings something important to the table. Some have huge energy reserves like Saudi Arabia and Iran. Some have large populations and growing economies like Indonesia and Nigeria. And others like Egypt and Argentina are regional powers that could expand BRICS' reach into new parts of the world.
Let's look at a few of these countries more closely. Saudi Arabia is one of the richest oil-producing nations in the world, and it has historically done most of its business using the US dollar, especially in oil sales. But now, Saudi leaders are exploring deals in other currencies, like the Chinese yuan. If Saudi Arabia joined BRICS, it could play a major role in supporting the use of non-dollar currencies for global oil trade, which would be a big step toward breaking the dollar's dominance in energy markets.
Iran is another interesting case. Due to years of US sanctions, Iran has been cut off from many parts of the global financial system. Joining BRICS could offer Iran new opportunities to trade, borrow money, and invest in development without needing approval from Western banks. Iran has already signed many deals with China and Russia, and it supports the idea of creating a shared BRICS currency that could be used for trade and investment instead of relying on the US dollar.
Then there's Argentina, a country that has faced serious economic problems for many years, including inflation, debt crises, and currency collapse. Argentina's leaders believe that BRICS could help them reduce their dependency on US-controlled institutions like the International Monetary Fund. By joining a group that offers new financial tools like the BRICS Development Bank and currency swaps, Argentina hopes to create more stability and new chances for growth and recovery.
Africa also plays a key role in BRICS expansion. Countries like Egypt, Algeria, and Nigeria are among the largest economies in Africa, and they are looking for new partnerships outside of Europe and the United States. South Africa is already part of BRICS and often acts as a bridge between the group and the rest of the African continent. If more African countries join BRICS, it could help bring billions of people into a new economic community focused on fairness, cooperation, and shared development.
Another big name is Indonesia, the fourth most populous country in the world. It's a rising power in Asia, with a growing economy, strong trade network, and strategic location. Indonesia has good relations with both the West and the East, but it has also expressed interest in a more balanced world where no single country or currency controls the entire global system. Joining BRICS could give Indonesia more independence in choosing its trade partners and financial policies.
Now you might ask, why do all these countries want to join BRICS instead of staying closer to the Western system? The answer is simple. Many of them feel that global institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the United Nations do not listen to their voices or treat them fairly. They want to be part of a system where their opinions matter, their resources are respected, and their economies are supported without hidden conditions or political pressure from stronger nations.
BRICS expansion could also help build a more balanced world economy. If more countries join the group, they can trade directly with each other using local currencies, invest in development projects together, and support each other during economic crises. This kind of cooperation can reduce dependency on Western economies and help protect countries from global shocks like inflation, debt traps, and sudden changes in interest rates caused by decisions made in Washington or Brussels.
Of course, expanding BRICS is not a simple task. Each new country that joins brings its own problems, politics, and priorities. Managing so many different cultures, languages, and economic systems will not be easy. BRICS must build trust, clear rules, and strong cooperation if it wants to grow successfully. It will take time, patience, and smart leadership to create a truly united and effective organization that can match the strength and coordination of groups like NATO or the European Union.
Still, the growing interest in BRICS shows that many countries around the world are ready for change. They are tired of being told what to do by powerful Western countries, and they want more freedom to shape their own futures. BRICS gives them hope that a new, fairer, and more equal system can be built, one that respects every country's right to choose its path and build partnerships based on respect, not control.
To summarize, BRICS is no longer just a club of 5 powerful nations. It's becoming a global movement with real momentum. Countries from every continent are asking to join because they see a chance to change their future and be part of something bigger. If this expansion continues, BRICS could become one of the most powerful economic groups in the world. And that could change the balance of power in global trade for many years to come.
In the next section, we'll dig even deeper and ask a hard but important question. Can BRICS really replace the US dollar? Is it even possible? What are the biggest challenges BRICS faces in trying to change the way the world uses money? Join us in Section 7 as we explore the limits, risks, and opportunities that lie ahead for this bold, new global alliance.
Now that we know how BRICS is expanding and attracting interest from countries around the world, it's time to face a very big and honest question. Can BRICS really replace the US dollar? Is it possible to build a new system strong enough, trusted enough, and powerful enough to compete with something that has been at the center of the global economy for over 70 years? This is a difficult question, and the answer is more complex than a simple yes or no.
Let's begin with something very important: trust. The US dollar is not just powerful because of America's economy, but because people across the world believe in it. Investors, banks, governments, and businesses trust that the dollar will hold its value, that US institutions are stable, and that contracts in dollars will be protected by laws and courts. Trust is like invisible money. You can't see it, but it holds everything together in the financial world.
For BRICS to replace the dollar, they would need to build a similar level of global trust. That means their currencies must be stable, easy to exchange, and accepted across borders. But right now, many BRICS currencies face challenges. The Russian ruble is under sanctions and very unstable. The Brazilian real and South African rand are often affected by inflation. Even the Chinese yuan, which is strong, is not fully open. China still controls its value through government decisions, which makes some investors nervous.
Another major challenge is infrastructure. The global financial system is built on connections: banks, payment systems, investment platforms, and legal frameworks. The dollar is part of almost all these systems. Changing that system is like changing the engine of a plane while it's flying in the sky. Very difficult and risky. BRICS would need to create safe, fast, and reliable payment systems that work across countries. They would also need to make sure people can send money, make investments, and settle trade deals without using the dollar.
They've already started some work in this area. For example, Russia and China have created their own payment networks to avoid using SWIFT, the US-controlled system for global banking. India and the United Arab Emirates are testing new ways to pay for oil using rupees and dirhams. These are important steps, but they are still small compared to the massive dollar system used by thousands of banks around the world every single day. It will take many years to build something that big and trusted.
Then there is the question of unity. The United States is just one country with one currency and one central bank. BRICS, on the other hand, is a group of very different nations. They have different political systems, different economic goals, and different currencies. Making decisions together is not easy. For BRICS to succeed in creating a common currency or a shared financial system, they need very strong cooperation and long-term commitment, even when problems or disagreements arise.
Let's talk about a possible BRICS currency. Some experts believe BRICS will create a new digital currency for trade. This currency would not replace local money like rupees or yuan inside each country, but it would be used for trade between BRICS members. It could be backed by gold or other assets, and it might help reduce the use of the dollar. But creating such a currency takes serious planning, agreement on rules, and the trust of global markets. And that's not easy.
Also, remember that many countries still prefer the dollar because it's easy to use and accepted everywhere. Even countries that support BRICS often keep their savings in dollars, do their exports in dollars, and borrow money in dollars. This shows how deeply the dollar is built into the world economy. Even if a new system becomes available, people might not want to change right away, especially if they think the new system might be risky or difficult to use at first.
Another issue is global leadership. The US dollar became dominant not only because of America's economy, but also because of America's leadership after World War II. The US helped rebuild Europe, supported global trade, and created institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. If BRICS wants to lead, it must offer something similar, not just an alternative currency, but a new global vision that supports peace, development, and fairness for all nations.
That said, change often starts slowly. Even if BRICS cannot completely replace the dollar today, it can still reduce the world's overdependence on it. If more countries start trading in their own currencies, if more banks join BRICS financial systems, and if more trust is built in BRICS leadership, then over time, the global economy will shift. The dollar will still be important, but it may not be the only game in town. And that would be a major change in how the world works.
It's also possible that the future of money will be more divided. Instead of one currency ruling the world, we may see different regions using different systems. For example, BRICS countries might trade mostly with each other using their own methods, while the West continues to use the dollar and the euro. This kind of multi-currency world might be more complex, but it could also be more balanced, giving each country more choices and more freedom in how they manage their economy.
So, can BRICS really replace the dollar? Maybe not completely, at least not in the next few years. But can BRICS change the global system, reduce dependence on the dollar, and offer new tools for trade and development? Absolutely. And that change is already starting. The big question is how fast it will happen and how many countries will join the journey. What we're witnessing is the beginning of a new chapter in global economics, a slow but powerful shift in how the world handles money and power.
In the next section, we'll explore how this global currency competition could impact ordinary people, like you and me. What happens to jobs, prices, savings, and trade when two different financial systems start growing side by side? And how can people prepare themselves for these possible changes in the future? Stay with us for Section 8. What this means for you.
Up to this point, we've talked about nations, currencies, and the global power struggle between BRICS and the US dollar. But now, let's bring this conversation closer to home. Let's talk about you, the listener, and what all this means for your daily life, your job, your money, and your future. When we talk about the global economy shifting, it might sound far away, like something only leaders, economists, or politicians should worry about. But the truth is, everything that happens at the top, trade, currency power, financial systems, eventually reaches the everyday lives of regular people.
Let's start with one of the most basic things, prices. If the dollar weakens or loses dominance, it will affect how much people around the world pay for things. Right now, most international trade, especially oil, gas, and food, is done in dollars. That means if the dollar becomes unstable, many countries could face higher prices for fuel, imported goods, or even technology. On the other hand, if BRICS countries successfully trade in their own currencies, they might protect their people from the shocks caused by sudden dollar movements. For you, this could mean more stable prices at your local markets in the future. or possibly more inflation if your country doesn't adjust quickly.
And then there's the question of jobs. When countries shift their trade routes or currency systems, companies also change how and where they do business. For example, if BRICS builds stronger internal trade, companies in Brazil may stop exporting as much to the US and start selling more to China, India, or South Africa. If local currencies become more useful, foreign businesses may start opening factories or offices in new regions. All of this can affect employment opportunities, the industries that grow or shrink, the wages you earn, or the kind of skills that become more valuable.
Let's not forget how savings and loans could be affected. Right now, many people save money in dollars or borrow money that is tied to dollar interest rates. If your country reduces its use of the dollar and moves toward BRICS-led financial systems, it might open up new banking options. Maybe your local bank will offer accounts in yuan, rupees, or a BRICS digital currency. This could bring lower interest rates, better exchange rates, or even access to new kinds of investments. But if your country is not prepared for this transition, you might also face confusion, uncertainty, or sudden changes in the value of your savings.
And let's talk about education and future careers. If BRICS keeps growing and becomes a central part of global trade, it means new languages, new markets, and new systems will become important. For example, learning Chinese, Hindi, or Portuguese could become more valuable in business, politics, or technology. Understanding how to use digital currencies, blockchain systems, and cross-border trade tools will be necessary for working in finance, trade, or international law. So, if you're a student or a young professional listening right now, remember that the skills that are valuable today may look very different in just 5 or 10 years.
Another major impact could come through travel and tourism. If the dollar is no longer the main global currency, travelers may start using BRICS currencies in more places. For instance, imagine paying in Chinese yuan in Africa or using Indian rupees in South America. It sounds strange now, but it could become normal in a multipolar world. That would mean different exchange rates, different travel costs, and different credit card options. Some travelers might find better deals and less dependency on dollars, while others could face confusion if their country's financial system doesn't support the new system well.
And we can't forget about the digital world. As BRICS explores the idea of launching a new digital currency, the way people make payments might change dramatically. You might one day be using a BRICS-backed digital wallet to send money to friends in different countries, buy products from BRICS companies online, or invest in international businesses using blockchain technology. These tools might make cross-border payments faster and cheaper, but they also come with risks. Cybersecurity, privacy, and regulation will become even more important in your daily digital life.
At a larger level, the rise of BRICS could also change the stories and headlines that dominate the media. Right now, most financial news is centered around Wall Street, the US economy, and Western markets. If BRICS becomes more powerful, people may begin hearing more about the Shanghai Stock Exchange, the New Development Bank, or economic decisions made in Delhi or São Paulo. The world's financial attention will start to shift, and that shift will shape what kind of news you see, what businesses you invest in, and even which countries are seen as economic leaders.
But this new global competition also brings some risks. For example, if the dollar declines too fast, it could create financial instability, not just in the US, but in countries that still rely on it heavily. Sudden changes in currency values can lead to inflation, loss of investor confidence, or even financial crises. On the other side, if BRICS countries don't manage their currencies well, or if they fight among themselves, their new system might fail or lose global trust. In both cases, regular people can suffer through job losses, price hikes, or falling currency values.
That's why it's so important for you as a global citizen to stay informed and flexible. We're entering a time when the world's economy is becoming more multipolar, meaning power is shared among many players, not just one or two. In this kind of world, Being prepared, adaptable, and aware of global trends can help you make better financial decisions, choose better career paths, and respond more wisely when change happens. Because the truth is, change is already happening.
You can also talk to others about this topic. Your friends, family, co-workers, and classmates. Ask them how they feel about using digital money, trading without dollars, or trusting new financial systems. These conversations help create awareness and shared knowledge, and they can also spark ideas about how to deal with global shifts in your own local environment. The more people understand how the world is changing, the better we can all adapt and grow together.
And don't forget to pay attention to your government's choices. As BRICS becomes more influential, your country might have to make important decisions, whether to join BRICS, trade in new currencies, or change its banking rules. These choices will shape your future. If citizens don't ask questions or demand transparency, governments may act without proper planning. But if people stay informed, they can guide their leaders to make smart and responsible decisions that support the country and its people.
To wrap this up, remember, global trade, currencies, and power structures may seem like big, faraway ideas, but they are connected to your life in ways you may not always see. When BRICS challenges the dollar, when countries join new trade alliances, or when digital money becomes a new normal, it all comes back to the same thing: how we work, live, save, spend, and dream. Your future will be shaped by these forces, and understanding them now gives you the power to stay ahead, stay safe, and stay ready.
In our next and final section, we will bring everything together. We'll look at the future, not just what's happening today, but what could happen in the next 10 or 20 years. What will the world look like if BRICS succeeds? What if it doesn't? What happens to the US dollar, to global power, and to all of us living in this new era of transformation? Don't go anywhere. Section 9 is coming next.
As we arrive at this final part of today's episode, let's take a deep breath and think beyond today's headlines, beyond the numbers, and even beyond the rivalry itself. Let's look toward the future. What kind of world might we be living in 10, 20, or 30 years from now if the BRICS nations continue rising, expanding their influence, and successfully building a global economic system that rivals or even replaces the US dollar? It's not just an economic prediction. It's a question that touches every aspect of life, politics, trade, and culture.
Let's start with the most obvious change: a multipolar world. For most of the 20th century, global power was controlled by a few countries in the West. After World War II, the United States emerged as the world's economic and military superpower. Its currency, the dollar, became the global standard, and its institutions helped shape the post-war world order. But the future might not belong to just one superpower anymore. In a multipolar world, power is shared between many regions: the West, the East, the global South, all with equal voices, different values, and different paths to development.
If BRICS grows strong and manages to create a stable and widely accepted financial system, we could see global trade split between two or more major financial networks. One would continue using the US dollar, supported by America, Europe, and their allies. The other would use a BRICS-led system, possibly built on a new digital currency backed by gold or national currencies. Some regions, especially in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, might choose to align with BRICS because they believe it offers more fairness, independence, and opportunities.
This would also change how international institutions operate. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, which are often seen as tools of Western influence, might lose their central role in development finance. The BRICS New Development Bank and other BRICS-led institutions might take their place in offering loans, aid, and investment support, but with different values, fewer conditions, and more emphasis on sovereignty and local control. That could give developing nations more freedom to choose their own policies.
In such a world, education systems might evolve to reflect the new global power centers. For decades, universities, business schools, and international organizations focused mostly on Western economic models, English language materials, and Western companies. But in a BRICS-led or multipolar future, students might study Chinese economic strategies, Indian software firms, Brazilian agricultural models, or South African trade routes. The global conversation would become richer, more diverse, and more balanced, opening minds to new ways of solving problems.
Travel and migration could also shift. If BRICS countries become central hubs of economic growth and innovation, more people might travel, work, or study in cities like Shanghai, São Paulo, Mumbai, Johannesburg, or Moscow. Airlines might add more direct flights between global South nations. Visa policies might change to promote South-South cooperation. And as trade grows between these countries, infrastructure like highways, railways, and digital networks would expand to support this new era of global connection.
But we must also consider the risks. A world with competing financial systems could lead to confusion, tension, or even conflict. If countries are forced to choose sides, smaller nations could get caught in the middle, facing pressure from both the US and BRICS to support their economic model. Currency wars, trade disputes, or diplomatic rivalries could become more frequent. That's why responsible leadership and international cooperation will be more important than ever in a future where no single power dominates.
There's also a question of fairness. Just because BRICS wants to create a new system doesn't guarantee that it will be more just or more democratic. Power always carries the risk of corruption, inequality, or exploitation. That means ordinary people, like you and me, must stay informed, ask questions, and participate in shaping the systems we live under. If BRICS succeeds, we must make sure that success includes justice, transparency, and opportunity for all, not just for the elites in big cities or powerful companies.
So, what happens to the US dollar in this future? It may not disappear, but it might lose its special status as the one global currency that everyone uses. Instead, it would become one strong option among many, respected, still widely used, but no longer the only game in town. The world might have more choices, and that could help reduce the financial shocks that happen when one country makes decisions that affect everyone else. It could also give smaller countries a better chance to protect their economies.
Technology will also play a big role in this future. Digital currencies, blockchain payments, artificial intelligence, and financial apps will make it easier for countries to build new systems. Imagine sending money between continents in seconds without using a bank, paying for groceries with a BRICS token, or starting a business that sells goods in 4 different currencies. These tools could reduce barriers and open new doors, but only if people are educated, protected, and supported as they adapt.
One of the biggest changes might be psychological, the way people think about power, wealth, and leadership. For generations, many countries looked up to the US and Europe as the center of innovation, success, and economic strength. If BRICS rises, people might begin to look east or south for ideas, partnerships, and inspiration. That could shift global culture in ways we can't yet imagine, from media and entertainment to science, philosophy, and international relations.
To be honest, we don't know exactly how the future will unfold. BRICS might grow stronger, or it might face challenges that slow it down. The dollar might remain powerful, or it might lose influence. But what's clear is that the world is changing, and changing fast. Countries are thinking differently, acting differently, and preparing for a new chapter in history. And that means we, as individuals, must also think differently, act with awareness, and prepare ourselves for the future.
So, dear listener, whether you're a student, a worker, a parent, or a policymaker, this story matters to you. It's not just about BRICS or the dollar. It's about who shapes the future, who who writes the rules, and who benefits from the changes ahead. You are not just a spectator, you are part of this global moment. And by learning, asking questions, and making wise choices, you can help shape a future that is more fair, more stable, and more full of opportunity for everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. From the history of the dollar to the rise of BRICS, from global politics to your daily life. In our final section, we'll give you a summary of everything we've learned and offer some final reflections on what it means to live in a world where power is shifting, currencies are changing, and a new global order is being born.
Here we are, the final section of today's journey into one of the most important and complex topics of our time. We've talked about power, money, and how nations shape the world through trade and finance. But before we say goodbye, let's pause and take a look back at everything we've learned, so that you, our listeners, walk away with a clear understanding of what's happening globally, why it matters, and how it could affect your life and the world around you in the years to come.
We began this episode by asking a big question. Who will control global trade in the future? Will the US dollar continue to dominate the world? Or will the rising alliance of BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, challenge that system and create a new financial world order? It's not just a battle of currencies. It's a deeper shift in global leadership, economic justice, and how countries choose to relate to each other, through cooperation or competition, through equality or control.
We learned that the US dollar became dominant after World War II, thanks to America's strong economy, trust in its legal system, and its leadership in creating institutions like the IMF and World Bank. The dollar is used in almost 90% of international transactions, and it gives the US great power, not just in trade, but in diplomacy, sanctions, and influence. But many countries in the global south have felt left out of that system. They want alternatives, and that's where BRICS enters the picture.
BRICS was formed with a bold vision to build a more balanced world. Together, these 5 countries represent over 40% of the world's population, have vast natural resources and growing economies. They've started trading more with each other, investing in their own development bank, and experimenting with using local currencies instead of the dollar. While they are very different from each other in politics and culture, they share a desire to reduce their dependency on Western-controlled systems.
We saw how BRICS is already reshaping trade. China is a global manufacturing hub. India leads in technology and services. Russia and Brazil are giants in energy and agriculture. South Africa connects BRICS to Africa's growing markets. By trading more with each other and creating alternatives to systems like SWIFT and the dollar-based payment system, they are slowly building a parallel financial world, one that gives them more independence and negotiating power.
Then we explored BRICS expansion, one of the most powerful signs of change. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Argentina, Egypt, and Indonesia have shown interest in joining the BRICS alliance. If this happens, BRICS could become the core of a new global economic bloc, representing not just a few countries, but a large part of humanity. This expansion would bring new energy, ideas, and challenges, but it could also strengthen the dream of a world where power is more equally shared.
But we also asked a hard question: can BRICS really replace the dollar? And the answer was honest and balanced. Replacing the dollar is not easy. The dollar has deep trust, strong infrastructure, and global acceptance. BRICS currencies face instability, lack of coordination, and political differences. A new shared BRICS currency could be possible, maybe even a digital one backed by gold or commodities, but it will take years of planning, agreement, and global trust to make it work at scale.
More importantly, we discussed what all this means for everyday people. For you, for us. A changing global economy affects jobs, prices, savings, travel, and education. It affects how you earn, how you save, how you invest, and even how you communicate. If BRICS rises, we may live in a world where new currencies are used, new trade routes are built, and new regions lead innovation. It will also require people like you to be more informed, more flexible, and more globally aware than ever before.
Looking ahead, the future is uncertain, but it's also full of potential. We might see a peaceful transition into a multipolar world, where the dollar, the BRICS currency, and other regional systems exist side by side. Or we might witness competition and conflict over who gets to set the rules. It depends on leadership, cooperation, and how wisely countries choose to act. But one thing is clear: the world is changing, and the global economic center is shifting before our eyes.
This change doesn't mean fear, it means preparation. It means asking questions, learning more, and staying connected to what's happening in the world. It means teaching the next generation to think beyond borders and currencies, and to focus on fairness, justice, sustainability, and peace. Because no matter which currency wins the trade war, dollar, yuan, rupee, or a new BRICS coin, the real victory will be building a global system that lifts everyone, not just a few powerful nations.
As we close this episode, we want to thank you, our amazing listeners from around the world. Whether you're listening from Asia, Africa, Europe, the Americas, or the Middle East, you are part of this global conversation. You care about the world, and you are taking the time to understand it better. That's what truly matters. Because knowledge isn't just power, it's the beginning of change.
Stay curious, stay informed, and remember, no matter how the world shifts, you have a voice. You have value. And your understanding of global issues like BRICS versus the dollar can help you grow, connect, and succeed in a world that belongs to all of us, not just the most powerful.
This was the English Globe. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep learning, and keep listening.